Deep. All right, we're going to fuck around and see what's going on in this mix. This song just was released yesterday. It's by the Funeral Procession. They're a really sick, extreme, I guess you'd call it an extreme. They sound like this. And then they also sound like this. I'd call that pretty extreme. So, yeah, like if you're, a fan of Opeth or Catatonia, you might be into these guys. They're from Texas. They're really cool dudes. Anyway, they let me mix their stuff, and that's cool for me because I really like their music, and it's nice to mix stuff that you enjoy listening to. So I'm gonna do a little mix walkthrough. I don't know what you normally call these things. But I try not to show stuff that I'm working on actively because, shit's getting weird with the internet and like people are getting ripped off, like even small bands and stuff. So, I don't really like putting anything on the internet that isn't already on the internet, released by the band. So, unfortunately you're not going to see a lot of like, in progress stuff from me, but they just released this song yesterday. So I'm going to do a little mix walkthrough. I'm just gonna, start from the beginning. So they record everything themselves. The drums they record in their rehearsal space, and they basically start with a demo file in Logic, and they build a demo with programmed drums and everything, like most bands do these days. But they've got a fucking sick as fuck drummer by the name of Jaron Castillo, I believe is how I've never actually met him in person. I'm up in Michigan, they're in Texas, so it's kind of a long distance thing. Never actually met any of these dudes, to be honest. But their drummer is a fucking beast, and he blasts like a fucking motherfucker, dude. That's mostly real drums. Like there's some sample reinforcement on the snare, as we will see here momentarily, but it's not a whole lot. This is mostly real drums. The toms are 100% natural. The kick is 100% fake, but that's because they use triggers, as bands like this typically do. If you're a triggers are cheating kind of person, then get the fuck out of here. I don't really want to talk to you. That's just part of fucking metal, like since the fucking like 80s, I think. So if you're trying to be all like, that's fucking cheating, like, dude, just maybe play some like, I don't know, hard rock or something. Probably not. Metal's probably just not really your thing. So we got some motherfucking drums up in here. So this is a little bit messy. That's because they'll record their demo like with the program drums, and then they take that demo out to the rehearsal space and they record their drummer on a real kit with microphones and all that kind of stuff, minus the triggered kick. Everything else is all natural. And then they send that to me, and then I edit things and kind of tighten things up a bit. But Jaron is such a fucking beast of a drummer. Like, I'm really just, nudging things here and there. There's one of the songs, can't remember the name of it. If I remember later, I'll put a link to it somewhere so you can check it out. There was like an entire, like, basically a drum solo in the middle of the song, and I didn't fucking touch any of it. Like, I didn't feel the need to tighten it up at all. And so it is intact out there in the world, and that can show you how good of a drummer this dude is. So yeah, I edit things a little bit, and then I just send that back to them, and then they track everything to the edited drums so that, that way everything locks in. And I try to leave things somewhat real. Like, I won't grid things out 100% usually. That's just a preference of mine. Like on blast beats, you should be able to hear the kicks moving just a little bit. They're not 100% perfect. But yeah, when you have a drummer that is that fucking good, you don't want to erase them by editing them too tightly, because then it's like, well, what's the fucking point of having that fucking badass drummer if he's not even, you can't hear that he's a fucking human. So I like to I'll tighten things up, but I try to leave it realistic. So then I send that back to them. They record all their other stuff, and then they send that back to me in a Logic file. I'm not a big fan of Logic, but I have it, so it makes things easier if they can just, if a client can send me their project in their own DAW, and if I have that same DAW I'll just extract everything myself, and then that way I know that I have everything, and I don't have to be like, hey, I'm missing something. Can you send this? I just have everything in the project file. So let's take a look at the kick. The kick is 100% triggered, and we're using Superior Drummer 3 for that. That's just a little kit that I put together for this band. All of the toms are 100% natural, so I'm not using any tom samples. We do have this kick, which I shortened up with this envelope because when you've got really fast kicks, like that's way too long. You might not really hear that unless you've got headphones on. You might not hear all of that sustain. But that's a pretty long fucking kick. I don't really need all that. So I fucking cut it the fuck off with this envelope. That makes it way tighter. And you might be like, dude, that's way too fucking short of a kick. But like, dude, when you got stuff like this going on, it's better to have a fast kick, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want with your kicks. So this is the snare reinforcement. We've got like a main snare, and then it's just a little stack. That's all of them together. But then if we mute it, you can hear the acoustic snare by itself. So really we're kind of brightening up the snap a little bit, and that's probably because of with my processing on the acoustic snare. Let's go back into that. We're probably losing a bit of that top end, probably in an effort to minimize cymbal bleed. Let's check this out here. This is the edited acoustic snare. Yeah, so that's pretty dark. So this is kind of a weird setup. The way that I have this, I have like I have the edit tracks set up a certain way to where they feed individual drum channels up here, and then this is where the actual processing is going on. So we've got the snare here, and then you can see the plugins. So if we turn off all of the inserts, that's typically what a recording is going to sound like. But I'm cleaning up the bleed with. We'll go through these plugins one at a time. Yeah. So we got silencer from Black Salt Audio. If I can get it, there we go. I'm not solely relying on that, but check it out here. So it's darkening it up a little bit, but that's just kind of, that's part of the game with metal. You got a lot of cymbal bleed, and it's really tricky to get the drums sounding good. And Saturn 2 is cleaning this up a little bit more. I don't know if you know about this trick, but this dynamics knob is it's almost like a magic trick. It's really cool for cleaning up cymbal bleed. And then we've got a rouser. Let's go to a part where there's more power. Got an EQ, brightening it up a bit because we're losing some of that top end. So yeah, I've got this bypassed EQ here. I don't want to touch that. That might be something that's automated, so I'm going to leave that alone. And we've got this SSL native channel. Let's see what that's doing. So it looks like we're brightening it up a little bit, pulling out some 2.5K and a little bit of mud or something. Oh, then we're boosting stuff. Whatever, we're doing stuff there without the MIDI. And then with the MIDI. Oh yeah, also that's where this Superior Drummer is where a lot of the room sound is coming from, because I did not have a room mic. The recordings that I'm getting from the drums are basically just triggered kick, close mics, and overheads. I think sometimes I'll get a hi-hat and ride mic, but typically I don't have any room mics or anything like that. So to get the room sound, I am you know, using this guy here and triggering the room sounds in the mixer here. And those are all being routed wherever you happen to be living, however you want to pronounce that word. So we've got the room mics. Let's go to a blast part. The room mics are being routed to the actual room bus in the project file. Okay, so yeah, here's the drum room here. And that's just because I don't have an actual drum room, so I'm faking it. And that's where we're getting that from. So we'll go back to the snare MIDI. We'll turn that on and off. So without the snare MIDI. So you can see the samples are just, you know, just bringing it up just a little bit. We're not really relying on that by any means. And then the toms are just manually gated. I fuck around with, usually when I'm editing drums, I'll put on like a normal gate or something like a silencer or something like that. But usually I end up preferring this manual gate thing. This is kind of a classic thing. This has been around for, I mean, probably at least since like Pro Tools, I'm guessing. But basically all you do, like the tricky thing with gating toms is they always have a lot of cymbal bleed. And typically what the problem with regular gating is like it just cuts everything off all at the same time. And there's like different tricks you can do. Like there's the Saturn II trick where you kind of decrease the sustain. Or there's like a Pro MB thing where you use like upward expansion, if I remember right. And that's kind of cool sometimes, but all of those to me feel a little bit weird. Like they just sound like, I don't know, there's something weird about them. But if you do this thing, I got MIDI for the toms, but I'm not actually using the MIDI. We'll go ahead and mute those. But with this manual gating method, all you're really doing is you're slicing things. One of them is full range. This is the normal tom track. It just sounds like this. It's just almost like a little blip. And that's basically, it's allowing the attack of the tom, or the attack of the drum to happen, like the top end, you know, tick. But then we're cutting everything else off because there generally isn't a whole lot of top end information after the attack of the drum, but there will be cymbal bleed. So we're making this little, we're allowing the attack of the drum, the stick hitting the drum head. We're allowing that to happen. And then it's like, all right, you're done, bro. But this one, we've got a low pass on it. Well, this one sounds like this by itself. So obviously it's way too dark. There's no attack. It sounds like a muffled fucking nothing. But that's why we have this short little tick on the top. That's it. So you cut off the cymbal bleed on the top end, like the full range tom track. And then on the duplicated low passed tom track, you allow the sustain to happen a little bit more. Or a little longer. That just works out a lot better than trying to make everything happen in some sort of automatic method. This takes a little bit longer, but to me, it sounds way the fuck better and gives you so much more freedom to do things with it. Like I can make these really fucking loud. I do kind of have them loud, pretty loud in the mix. And a lot of times you can't get away with doing that stuff if you're just going to try to gate it with like a plugin or something. I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble if you're like, man, I was hoping that you could just fucking throw a plugin on there. I mean, you can. It's just not gonna sound as cool. And somebody might hate that sound. They might think that those toms are too processed sounding. That's fine. I like them. The other thing I like about manually gating toms is that you can control, like, if you want a certain hit to ring out longer for whatever reason, you can do that. You're not really stuck to like certain settings or like automating everything. You just, you know, treat each fill as needed. And that's kind of cool. So yeah, again, these are like the edit tracks, and then they are feeding these buses where the processing is going on. So let's hear these toms without any processing. Oops. Yeah, so it sounds like I'm cleaning these up quite a bit. Let's focus on the tom 3. So here is the floor tom without any processing. And mind you, it's going through there's other processing going on down the chain. So that's probably why it's sounding a little bit heavy, but I'm trying to make this video relatively quick. So we've got silencer going on. Then we've got Saturn. Again, this is just using this dynamics knob to kind of pull out some of the non-transient sort of stuff, the sustain of it. So you can hear that's kind of shortening it a little bit. And then we've got some EQ to shape it. So this is, you'll see, I'll use like these high pass filters sometimes, and people will be like, "Dude, you're creating a hump here. Whenever you use you're creating a phase shift that creates a hump here." A lot of times I'll do that on purpose. But then I've also got this, which somewhat contradicts that. So I'm not really sure what happened here. If I I don't know if I added this first or this other one first, but a lot of times I'll do somewhat contradictory moves, and I'll actually prefer it that way. Like somebody might say like, "Dude, why don't you just do this in this one move or whatever?" And I kind of like the counteractive EQ thing, or at least right now I do. And I tend to do stuff like this fairly often. With toms, I also feel like it can be pretty handy to put a dip, somewhere just, north, a little bit higher frequency of the, wherever you're kind of shaving things off. Like if I'm focusing the low end, fundamental information kind of right in here, or I guess I shouldn't say that I'm focusing it, it's already there. But if this is where I'm kind of trying to isolate it, usually if I dip some frequencies a little bit ahead of it, I usually end up liking that. That's not a hard and fast rule. It's just something that I've observed over the years, where I end up putting that little dip in there, and it's like, hey, that's pretty nice. So yeah, there's that tom. These are all going to be pretty similar. With silencer. With Saturn 2. With EQ. Usually my tom EQs will end up being somewhat similar, but these the exact frequencies will usually be shifted a little bit. Not always, but that's just typically what I've found to be fairly common in my mixes. And then, so going from these individual tom tracks where they've got the processing, they're going into this tom's bus, and then we've got additional processing here. I'm not going to go over like all of the processing, because that's going to end up being way too fucking long of a video. Nobody's really that fucking interested. But just as a quick overview, we've got the kick sample. You can see that I've done some pretty crazy stuff to the velocity curve here just to get things to react kind of how I want it to. We've got this kick, and it looks like it's just the kick. There's no extra samples. And that is feeding this kick bus. Well, first we've got this EQ, and then it's going to this kick bus here with some compression, punch exciter, transient designer, more EQ. Looks like I'm just butchering the fuck out of that. And then that is feeding into this SD3 kick channel, which has more EQ. Looks like I'm just fucking annihilating that fucking top end. But it's still there. All right, and then that feeds into this kick bus where I probably got more. Yeah, I'm pulling more of that top end out. A little bit of compression. It's barely touching there, but it might be a little bit more here. Yeah, just touching that. And then we've got multi-band compression. So I usually do this. This will usually clamp down on the fast runs. So if we watch how fast it's reacting here on the low end, you see I've got the attack way the fuck up here, and that's to kind of let most of the stuff through. But then when it gets to the fast stuff, and that's just to kind of keep that the bottom end from just, you don't want that on those fast things, because then you can't really, you can't, nothing's legible, or it's just, it's bad. But it's still letting, the attack is slow enough to let most of that thump through on the slower parts. So you can see it's just a really slow reaction. So it's just when that low end buildup starts happening. And there's tons of ways of doing this. Like you can use the MIDI velocity. You can lower the velocity of the actual MIDI. You can separate the two tracks. You can have like one kick track that is just for the fast stuff, and you can kind of high pass that a little bit higher. There's all kinds of different stuff you can do. This is what I've been doing lately, and I've been preferring it over the other methods. Okay, so that's the kick. Yeah, we've got stuff going on there. Here's snare bus. Here we've got a reverb thing here too, which is mostly snare, I believe. Let's turn these off. This is part of where I start trying to get my volume for my snare in a mix. Like the classic mixing thing, I think is more to like carve space for everything, so everything has like its own like place to live or whatever. So like in a lot of like older mixing books, you'd always read about carving out a space for your snare or whatever. And I'll still generally try to do that, but I want my snare to like kind of be too loud. I want it to hit the master bus a little bit too loud. But I also don't want it to be like kind of ridiculous. So like I'll usually start getting my loudness for my snare on the snare bus by using a bit of clipping. This will probably show you right here. This is mostly loudness stuff. Okay, so we'll turn them on one at a time. Oh, it's not doing a whole lot. This one I believe is a spectral clipper, I believe. Yeah, and you can see it's not actually really clipping a whole lot yet. And the reason I will use these clippers a lot of time for these like, boosts or whatever is it's a little bit safer, I guess, because if you get like a stray hit that's just like way too loud, it's not going to fuck anything up later on because it's got a volume cap on it. Let's go to some louder hits. Yeah, so really that's just boosting. It's not really clipping it much. And then we've got multi-band compression. Okay, so yeah, that looks like it's just doing the same thing like what I had on the kick to for the blast beats to keep the bottom end from getting too bloomy. So like I want the snare to have some bottom end like weight and punch, but if you have too much of that on a blast beat, it's just gonna crowd out the mix and you won't be able to hear anything else. So on the blast beats, we're pulling out some bottom end and some lower mids just to kind of thin out the snare, because we don't need, on these blast beats, it's kind of just like, it's meant to kind of sound like a barrage, but if everything is allowed to be 100% full force, like it's just going to fucking annihilate the mix. So we got to do some weird shit to make sure that that doesn't happen. And again, this is just one method of doing this. You could also have 2 different snare tracks and process them differently for blast beats, or however you want to do it. There's so many different fucking ways. This is just how I did this one. So you kind of hear it's just cleaning up that bottom end a little bit. Tom cymbals, let's hear what those sound like. Yeah, so I've got Soothe. I don't like to use this too much unless I have to, but sometimes on overhead tracks, they'll really help me out. So yeah, it's not super drastic, but it's making it a little bit more pleasant for me, at least. And it's still, I don't really like to rely too much on stuff like Soothe, so you can kind of see, I don't have it set too high. It's just mostly kind of just touching some stuff a bit. And then we've got this thing where I'm just kind of trying to clean stuff up in a little bit more of a static sort of fashion, classic EQ stuff, but we do have some dynamic EQ as well. Yeah, and then we've got this other one. Looks like sometimes I'll stack EQs like this, where if I don't feel like this is quite there, but then like if I try to totally redo the whole thing from scratch, I don't really, end up liking where I'm going with the new one. So I'll just leave things intact, and instead of adding more nodes to this existing EQ, it's easier for me to just add another one, do what I need to do, and then I could easily compare the changes by turning that new one on and off. Cool, there are some cymbals. And then all of those drum subgroups go into this drums subgroup. Turn these on one at a time. Fuck, I'm not doing anything on this. This just must be a safety limiter here, I guess. Or maybe I had this boosted at some point and then ended up just bringing it down. I don't know, but it's there. It's not really doing anything. I mean, there might be some loud hits here and there where maybe it just caps those. I'm not really sure. Then we've got Infuse here. It's hard for me to not use this plugin ever since I got it. It sounds really good on a lot of stuff. A lot of times I'll mix into that, so you can hear when I bypass, it sounds really dark. That's probably because I just had this thing on kind of earlier in the mix. we've got this compressor that isn't really doing any compression, but you can hear it's giving a little something, probably just because of this makeup gain. That's probably the only thing that's happening. And then we got a clipper here. It looks like it is doing stuff. Maybe not. Yeah, I've got too much stuff on there. If I can probably get rid of most of that. We do have this reverb channel here. It is a send. So we've got a little bit of kick, very small amount of kick. We've got snare, top and bottom, mostly bottom going to that motherfucker, it looks like. We've got the Superior Drummer snare, the snare smash channel that's also coming out of that. And then the overheads and room are also feeding that drum verb. Cool, there's the drums. And then we've got bass. I don't think I've got anything fancy going on. I think this is just one track. There's this like intro thing. This ended up changing a little bit like toward the end of the mix. They kind of had an arrangement thing. And we moved this little bass lead from later in the song to this intro. I think we muted a guitar lead also. Yeah, so we've got 2 stages of processing here. So we'll go over the actual bass track. Oh man, so I've got some sort of weird thing going on with my licensing thing here where like I can hear that the thing's working, it's on, but this just keeps popping up. So I'm gonna have to like every couple of weeks I need to redo this with this plugin. So it's annoying. So sorry, I'm not going to show you that right now because I don't feel like getting into my email and going through all that again. So wait, can I just do the fucking trial again? Fuck this, dude. All right, whatever. So I'm using this bass suite. That's doing pretty much everything. So sorry that that's not showing up. I'm going to try to talk to the dudes there at the company and be like, hey bros, is there a way to make this not happen anymore? Because it's fucking annoying. I love that plugin though, so it's hard. I can't stop using it, you know. So I'm guessing most of this was to probably clean things up and make room for other instruments, because this is a pretty dense mix. You kind of hear him pulling out some low mids. I guess that might be, you know, bass territory. 100-something hertz there. You kind of hear that. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to the bass bus. And typically I'll have more than one track of bass. I'll have like a top end or a bottom, or, you know, I'll be blending tones, but I didn't really feel the need to do that on this one. I was just like, cool, that sounds pretty good. And the band liked it, so I guess there wasn't really much need to go further than that. Here's the bus processing. So this double tap, this is one of my favorite bass processors. I'm pretty sure it's just a multi-band compressor, but I have found that typically if you like follow the instructions on this thing, there we go, it's up. Okay, so yeah, these have instructions, and if you follow the instructions, it usually gets you in a pretty good ballpark. And it's got this saturation thing that can make things a little bit extra grindy, but you have to be careful. You can kind of, if you pay attention to the bottom end, sometimes this extra, they call it EDM saturation or EDM mode or whatever. Sometimes that's just too much, and you end up kind of, it'll sound a little bit too flat or something. Looks like I'm using some dynamic EQ to clean up some low mids there, probably just to make more room for other stuff. And then we've got track spacer. This is just doing that classic kind of side chain thing for the kick, which isn't playing because we've got the bass soloed. And that's just letting the kick punch holes in the bass, but only on the bottom end, because we don't want to, like the classic thing is to use a single band compressor, and that's just ducking the entire bass every time the kick hits. I prefer doing it this way because you're just, you're getting the stuff out of the way that's actually in the way, and you're not fucking up the top end of the bass. And there's just a little bit extra control for that bottom, because I don't really want the bottom end to fluctuate really at all, especially on like a really dense mix like this, because you won't really be able to tell where that fluctuation's coming from. So I prefer just to pin it, keep it fucking laser straight if I can. Cool, there's the bass. Then we've got some guitars. We've got some acoustics. Acoustics are always tricky for me because I'm more of a metal dude. But I love mixing acoustic guitars. They're a little bit, they're like a fun challenge because, you know, I'm used to, you know, electric stuff all the time. Normally when they send me acoustic tracks, it's usually just one mic, but this time they've got body and neck, so I just blended those together. I don't have any EQ on them. I didn't really do much at all as far as the balance of the two. And then the mix on each guitar, we've got a compressor and an EQ. And that's it. That's what I'll just solo this one. So this compressor, a lot of it's just, we're bringing up the input gain, boosting it up, and we're boosting it into a compressor, so it's controlling it a bit more. So we're just boosting that, and then we're cleaning it the fuck up here. Yeah. There's both guitars together. And a lot of times when I listen back to things in solo, I'm like, man, I kind of like it better the other way. But, you know, in the context of the mix, you kind of have to make changes that you wouldn't normally make if it were, you know, just this guitar by itself. But in the context of the mix, it usually makes more sense. So there's the acoustic guitars, and then we've got, this is just reverb for the acoustics. Pretty subtle. Guitars, miscellaneous. That's pretty much all of these, except for the rhythms. I guess I should go back to the rhythms before we get into the other guitars. So we've got just simple DIs here. But I think I blended some amps. Yeah, okay, so this isn't normally how I do things, but in this particular instance, I think did I do a send? DI pair. Okay, so like I routed these to this subgroup or bus, whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, okay, so this is what's going on. So this then feeds this DI signal group, which is then the volume's pulled down because I don't want to actually hear that. This is some weird routing stuff that I made in order to make this thing work. So then we're sending pre-fader sends to each of these two subgroups, which have amp sims on them. So we've got two different effects chains for the guitars. First we have Gojira. This is what they tracked with, so I just wanted to... I like to keep things similar to, like, if somebody used a particular thing while tracking, I usually try to go with that tone first or something really similar to it, because I feel like, you know, when you're tracking guitars, you're kind of feeding off of, you know, what you're hearing. That affects your performance. And then sometimes when you reamp with a completely different tone later, there's just something weird about it. Like, it just doesn't really feel right. And I think that's part of why is this, like, the interaction between the performer and what they're hearing, and then you change it, and it's like there's no longer that connection. I'm probably like way overthinking it, but that's my theory anyway. So I'll show you each of these tones by themselves. Okay, so you can hear most of the guitar tone that we're hearing is the Gojira. This is basically, I think they tracked, I might have actually changed the head on this. That might be what happened here. I think they might have used this head. Yeah, I switched to this one to give it a little bit more chunk, I think. And yeah, I might have tweaked a few other things, but it's mostly their same tracking tone, just with a few tweaks. And then we're going into this IRDX. Once I tried this thing out, I was initially skeptical and I was like, man, I don't know, it's not doing a whole lot. And then now I feel weird if I don't end up using it, because it's like I can hear, it's more about what it takes away. Check this out here. So I can hear a little bit more like top end sizzle with this, but then it's also pulling out some sort of wonk. And that's the main reason I usually throw this plugin on, is I find that I feel like I don't really have to do quite as much EQing if I use this bad boy here. But I'm still EQing shit. Here we go. And it's almost always pulling out fucking 2 to 3K somewhere in here. I could probably go even further with this, but you know how guitars are. They just sound like ass most of the time. Looks like I'm using the filter here and not much else. Not really doing any EQ. Yeah, so additional low-pass filtering there. There's the main rhythm tone that you're hearing. And then we've also got the Grindstein. And this is just kind of subtly in there to give a little bit more fullness, like a little, you know, it's the HM2 thing. Oh shit, no, we're not even using Grindstein. So this is what I started with, was the Grindstein. And apparently I ended up being like, nah. And we've got just, you know, an HM2 going into an IR and then an EQ. Yeah, and then all together we've got... what else we have? Guitar solos. Cool. I mean, these aren't all actual solos. Some are just kind of leads. So this part was actually cut. Ooh, you can hear it here. The only time you're going to hear this part. This used to be in the song, now it's gone. But then kind of towards the last minute, they're like, hey, can we move around some stuff and maybe get rid of that lead? So now we have the bass lead, which I think was right under the verse, and it was a little bit distracting. So we moved that to the beginning and we cut this guitar lead. So now it sounds like this. But then this lead comes in right about here. Falls upon me. I don't know if we need to go over the whole chain or not. I think we're getting a little bit of crackling from the master bus processing because we've got only this lead going into it and nothing else to kind of push down on things. So I apologize for that crackliness. So we've got delays on delays here. That's often how I will do things. Filtering here. And that was just to kind of push it back because we've got vocals happening there, and I don't want this lead to distract from the vocals. Looks like I tried vintage verb at some point, and then I was like, nah. We've got vintage or Valhalla delay here. That's adding a little bit of spread. And then we do have vintage verb here. And side widener. A lot of times I'll use this, like if there's a vocal and a guitar lead happening at the same time, this side widener plugin is kind of cool to like get the guitar lead out of the center. And I prefer this over doing like weird mid-side things because this doesn't sound as weird to me as a lot of those other things. Or like, it's typically, I think it's meant to be, to widen things. But I found like, for whatever reason, this one just seems to do it better. I don't really like using widening things really much at all, but this is a cool way to like, if you have a mono source and it's just like right on top of like other things, you throw this on it and it's kind of, it widens it slightly and kind of creates a channel in the middle without getting all weird. So I really like this plugin. And this is the older version. They've got a new one I have not upgraded yet. But you can kind of see when this is bypassed, that guitar lead is like just fucking right here in your face, and it's like, get, back the fuck off, bro. Creates a nice little spot for the vocals. I'm not sure why this part is so much louder than the other thing. I don't know if they switched guitars or something, but I just left it as is because it's feeding into an amp stem and it doesn't sound weird or anything. So got that lead. And we've got some volume automation kind of making things go up and down here a little bit. All right, then we got this lead back here towards the end. All right, so this is a good example of getting the guitar lead out of the way of the vocals. So right here, typically it's tricky to have like a guitar lead and vocals happening at the same time because most humans are just automatically going to focus on the vocal. It's like an evolutionary thing. We can't really fight it. We're programmed to pay attention to another human speaking. So when stuff like this comes up and I'm trying to, get the guitar lead to still be heard but not overpower the vocal, that's where like the side widener and like kind of getting it out of the center really helps out. So this is without that sort of processing here. So it sounds like the guitar and the fucking vocal are like in the same fucking space, and it's like, what do you want me to listen to? What the fuck's going on here? So I want to get the guitar out of the way of the vocal without, like I don't want to just fucking make it quieter because I don't want to bury it or lose it or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these effects, and we should hear it kind of get out of the way of the vocal without completely disappearing. So you can kind of hear we may have lost a little bit of the like upfront, presentness of the guitar lead by we're kind of pushing it back and to the sides a little bit, but the vocal is always going to win those fucking battles. Unless the vocal is supposed to sound like a background thing, then we might do something completely opposite. And there is something like that in the beginning. He has some subtle vocal things happening. So yeah, like these little kind of things. So that would be like one of the exceptions where I wouldn't consider the vocal to be the main top line or the main center of attention there. The bass is kind of the lead part there, and that's kind of how I tried to arrange the mix, is to like everything's kind of supporting what the bass is doing, including the vocals. And then here it changes. Everything else kind of steps back, and it's the vocal is the center of the show. But in parts like this, where we've kind of just got both things and they're both important, and they're trying to kind of occupy the same space, the vocal's always going to win because he's actually saying words. This is an actual vocal part. So the guitar loses that battle, and luckily we have these, widening tricks and stuff, so we don't have to just pull the vocal, or we don't have to completely just pull the lead down and lose it. We can keep it present. We're just pushing it back into the sides a little bit. All right, and then here's the actual solo. Their guitarist, Nakoa, he's more of a rhythm guy like me. I can totally relate to him, like feeling like he's not much of a lead player, but he's been working on his lead stuff a lot lately, and this fucking solo sounds fucking killer as fuck to me. Yeah, so I printed this. So this is from the DI. Oh no, I didn't use that. Oh no, sorry. No, he printed this himself. So this is from his Helix. He's got a Line 6 Helix thing. So yeah, this is just his tone. I added some EQ and delay. All right, so there's the guitars. Then we've got keyboards. They've got like this badass dude that does all these keys and stuff for him. He's just like a total musical phenom kind of dude. And man, it's always cool because like he just sends this stuff in, and it's always just like I just throw the stuff in, and I'll tweak it a little bit, but usually it's mostly ready to go. A lot of times I'll have to pull out some like bottom end, because typically with like synth sounds and stuff, they're meant to be like, here's a full sound in case you need all of it. But typically you don't need all of that, especially in a really dense mix. So usually that's all I'm really doing is like kind of pulling out bottom end just to leave room for the main instruments. It's like the one down part of like having all these cool sounds is like I want all of them to be super loud. And you can't always make that happen. You kind of have to pick and choose. I mean, when you have a really dense mix and there's just a fuck ton of stuff going on, not everything can be loud, so you have to just kind of choose what to focus on. And that's typically, the band will help me out with that kind of stuff, because my first mix is kind of a guess, like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then they'll be like, can we have a little bit more of the piano or like less of this other thing? And then I'll kind of just shape it how they want it. Yeah, so we got like this organ thing that pops in the guitar solo. Yeah, it's just tricky to balance all this stuff because it's a lot of stuff going on all at the same time. And then vocals, this is pretty simple. We've got a couple of cleans. Oh yeah, I had a glitch that I had to fix in this first verse. That's what you're seeing here. This isn't actually supposed to be a stereo track. That's just, I printed it from Logic wrong. It's mono, but whatever, you know, it's fine.
To truly know shadows fall, the darkness calls.
So we've got clean tracks and dirty tracks, or, you know, growl tracks. So let's go over the processing on these cleans real fast.
To truly know.
We'd have these sounds.
To truly know. The shadows fall, the darkness calls upon me.
This speaker sim is something that I automate at some point, I think, or that could be left over from. I reused a lot of the stuff from the last mix. Their last song was a cover of Opeth's "Deliverance," and I took a lot of the tracks and stuff from that. Didn't really use it as a template, but imported existing vocal tracks and things like that. So that might be part of that. I know I used that on that song. I don't know. You can see some automation going on. I'm probably not going to get all up into that because, you know, this video is going to get way too long. It's already pretty fucking long.
Truly know the shadows fall, the darkness calls upon me. Hold me now before the last snow chill runs down, no hope is found.
So it looks like I'm using this multi-band compressor as partly as a de-esser and to control some of the mid-range. They are. Yeah, I'm not sure when the speaker sim comes on. Then we got a little volume boost to boost all of the cleans going into the main Vox bus, which has nothing but a de-esser on it. Okay, so those are the cleans. There's not much layering going on. I think this is the only overdub in the whole motherfucker, or at least for Brian's vocals.
Chill runs down, no hope is found in me.
So yeah, I think that is the only bit of vocal stacking. This was a mistake, this laugh here, but I asked them, can we please keep this in? Because it fucking sounds sick going into this next part. So I have it separated here because I was expecting them to make me cut it, but then they're like, oh, that's cool, let's leave it. So I was like, fuck yeah. All right, here is Brian's gutturals, his screams here. So these ones I do have actual processing on the tracks. All right, let's go.
The cursing waged upon me, the sense of dread.
So that's his voice without any effects. So if you're like, oh man, there's got to be effects, it's not. That's what his voice sounds like.
The cursing waged upon me.
We're just, adding a bit of stuff here. Looks like I'm boosting the volume into this compressor.
The cursing waged upon me, the sense of. The cursing waged upon.
Pretty much smashing it.
The cursing waged upon me, the sense of dread imposing. The cursing waged upon me.
A little bit more control, then we got some saturation.
The cursing waged upon me. The cursing waged upon me. The cursing waged.
So there are the gutturals for Brian, and then Nakoa's got his vocal part here. So these are the only parts with actual vocal stacks. His shit is so fucking intense. It's fucking like when I first heard that, I was like, fucking goddamn. And then I saw an Instagram post where he showered his pop filter with spit, and it's like, yeah, I could hear that happening here.
Sticking in tragic austerity, the rotting wound, festering eternally, lost in the void, sun never rises. Death is the echo, the fate sacrifices, what whispers the death of the hunting faces. The hunting hellscape. Sticking in tragic austerity, the rotting wound, festering eternally.
Yeah, I'm making it extra dirty using this gain reduction thing. This is, I think this is Joey Sturgis's first plugin. He actually coded this, I think, himself, which is kind of cool. You've got a arouser here. I guess I should go to where the track's actually happening.
The rotting wound.
Yeah, we're fucking smashing that thing, bro.
The rotting wound, festering eternally.
And then
the rotting wound,
smashing it even more, and then saturation.
The rotting wound.
So yeah, it sounds like it does. Let's hear what it sounds like without.
The rotting wound, festering eternally.
Oh, good sense.
The rotting wound, festering eternally.
Yeah.
The rotting wound, festering eternally.
Yeah, I love that. Like when the vocals are supposed to be super aggressive like that, I like just making them fucking dirty and sound like they sound kind of fucked up and like just too fucking loud and intense. And that's good. I like that. That's kind of what I wanted. Yeah. And one thing I will do with this dude in particular, with Nakoa, just because of the character of his voice, I feel like he sounds really cool. Like when he doubles his shit up, I'll leave it loose. Like it sounds fucking just chaotic and fucking like messy in a good way. Typically, I'll try to tighten that stuff up. Like if a vocalist is sending in doubled parts. Sorry, my dog is snoring. I don't know if you can hear that. I should probably close these doors. Hold on. Anyway, yeah. So I will leave his vocals intentionally loose because it just sounds more chaotic. You can see I did cut out some breaths here because that will sound a little bit weird if you leave, like, if you've got double inhalations. Maybe not there, but I'm assuming that's why I cut these out. But you typically only need one breath happening. Right here I left them in. I guess there's not really much room for any weird stuff. So anyway, there's the vocals. That's basically that. And then so all of these individual channels or subgroups, feed into this, well, the instruments feed into the instruments bus, which doesn't have anything on it, but it's just an extra control point if I need it. And then, yeah, the vocals, I've got the de-esser on all of them. And then those go straight into the mix bus. And that's got this stuff on it. Oh, I should also clarify that the final master that went to the dudes, this isn't the final master. I typically, I'll mix into some mastering processing. I'll start bringing that in like partway through the mix. And then by the time I send them a final master, or by the time I send them a mix to critique, it's really loud. It's it should sound basically like a mastered album. But then once we have all the details figured out and they like the mix, then I I print everything and then I move it to a mastering session, and I'll do a few different variations and try to beat the master that I have here. And then I will usually give them a few options. They pick their favorite, and then that's the one that I send them. So this isn't the final master, but this is just a quicker way to show you the mix. And the final master didn't end up being too terribly different from this one. So we've got the mix. Let's go to a loud part. So it looks like I'm just pulling a little bit of some mid-range out, not a whole lot, barely a decibel here at 500-ish hertz and a little bit at 272, almost a decibel there. And this, I love this EQ. It's basically like a different version of a Pultec EQ. And then this clipper. Looks like it's just a safety clipper. Oh, I think I did that when I print things for the final mix. Sometimes I will, I'll just bypass stuff on the master bus, and then print the actual mix bus, and then that way that's what I'm actually moving to that secondary mastering session. And then a lot of times I'll just put this clipper on here just as a safety thing, because sometimes you get like a weird random hit that'll clip the master bus, and I'm like, you know what, I'll just put a clipper on there. But it's probably not actually doing anything. Just a little safety thing there for the final mix print. And then so that would get printed and sent to the other mastering session. But I also have stuff like that going on here. So this is basically my mastering processing for this mix. And this is where I set my reference plugin. And I've got the Slate VSX thing to check different virtual rooms or whatever. Man, I got poison ivy on my arm. I'm starting to feel it on this one. This one has been fucked up for days. I must have got it on this one too. Great. Awesome. That's basically it. So yeah, there's the unmastered mix. And I think I must have fucked something up when I was showing you something, because the vocals sound quiet now. Whoops. Oh, I didn't turn these on. Back on. There we go. There we go. Now my mix is back. So this mix is what I would send to the mastering session. And typically what I will do is I'll take this chain that I used while I was mixing and save that as master A or whatever. And then that way I can bring that in on the mastering session. And then that's master A. Then I'll do a separate version where I tweak things and, just do a different version. Usually I do at least 3 versions, including, this one. But typically they'll all be fairly close to each other. One might be like just a little bit brighter. One might be more full, might be one that's like a little bit more like gritty or saturated. And then I let the band kind of choose a direction, and then that's the one what I end up sending them is whatever one that they prefer. But it's typically going to end up something fairly close to what I have in this mix thing. If you want to check these out, here's what we got. I'll turn them on one at a time. So, a little bit of mix bus compression there. Oxford inflator to make it a little louder. I'm pretty sure it's just like a saturator. It's, you know, making it a little bit more full. So this is where we're getting a lot of our, we're doing a lot of our volume shaping. We've got this auto compensation thing on, so it's not actually boosting the volume. It's just, you know, taming or basically cutting the peaks off. And I'm basically using this to shape things before they go into my final limiter. So if we use this delta control, we can hear what's getting cut out of the mix. And these delta things, these are typically how I will use, or what I will use to gauge how much clipping I want to do. If you go too much and you start hearing like music, if it starts sounding like music, you're probably cutting out too much. Because if you remember, this is showing you what you're removing from the actual mix. So check it out. If we start hearing music, we know we're going too far. So like that's all getting cut out. So then if we go back to the actual mix, yeah, it's pretty fucked. But like this, typically I'll get to where it's like, I'll start pushing it on like the louder parts or whatever, but it's usually, I try to keep it to where it's sounding mostly like just, you know, little clips and clicks and ticks and stuff. And then typically when I switch back to this, it usually sounds, you know, clean enough for me. Because I want it to sound a little bit fucked up. And I know that sounds kind of weird and probably bad or whatever, but I like for things to sound a little bit, you know, like they're getting pushed really hard. So this is fucking metal, you know, it's not like, shouldn't sound fucking too clean, in my opinion. I don't like, you know, it's just not really metal to me. Like, I really like Andy Sneap's mixes and shit, but, like for me, he's a good example of like, that's just way too clean for me. Not really my style. I like for stuff to sound a little bit more gritty. And then flatline 2. That should be the loudest part here. So you can see we're not doing a whole lot here. I could probably push this up louder if I wanted to, but like I don't really pay attention to numbers. I just try to go to where it feels right, you know, compared to my references and stuff, and then I'll just typically stop. And then if the band wants me to go louder, I'll go louder, but I don't care too much about the numbers. And this has the same sort of delta thing, so we can listen in for if we're removing too much information. If this starts to sound like we're losing music, then we need to back it off. So yeah, I could push this louder if I wanted to, but I don't really feel like it's necessary. You know, I know a lot of people they'll try to just completely make their mix louder than anything else, but I don't really think that that's necessary. Man, my dog is snoring really loud. I should probably just stop this video. So there you go. There's a walkthrough of Whispering Dark by the Funeral Procession. This just came out yesterday, so you can find it on all streaming platforms. The band is The Funeral Procession. The song is Whispering Dark. Yeah, so check it out. There's some rad dudes. So yeah, go listen to it. Or don't, but you should. Man, I totally forgot the outro. I was going to make this. Ryan actually asked specifically about this outro, and I totally forgot. So Here's the outro. So we've got this spoken word thing that the band sent in. This was sent in towards the end of the mix, kind of like an add-on thing. It's pretty easy to slot it in. But I've got some effects on this here. I guess I'll show you some of the background sounds first. So I'm pretty sure that's probably their keyboardist dude doing all that. I could be wrong. But it's pretty high quality sounds going on there. This right here, these crossfades, this is just like a cheap way to do some volume automation. I just wanted the volume to kind of increase here. Or rather, I think what I was doing was I wanted them to be quieter in the first part because we've got a little bit more happening at the outset of this part. You know, we've got this piano thing. But those things die out, so then like to kind of fill in the gap, the volume increases on these whatever pad things. So yeah, then we've got this spoken word thing.
What is a mind in the grip of vicious circles? You are worried.
I think they kind of edited the thing to get the timing a little bit, a little bit more musical for their purposes. But I didn't, alter it in any way. I believe that's Alan Watts who was speaking there. But yeah, we can see the effects that I added here.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles?
This is really loud, sorry, because some of these are going to pull that volume back down.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles?
So yeah, we've got all kinds of weird stuff going on. So compression, that's just to try to flatten the dynamic range a bit. And we've got the speaker sim thing.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles?
So this is just making it sound a little bit lo-fi before it hits the real lo-fi thing.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in...
Making it a little dirty.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind...
And this warble thing, it's funny because it's called warble, but that sure does look like an M. So yeah, basically it's a high cut, low cut sort of thing, and then it makes it sound like a tape, and then you've got like wow and flutter, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a kind of sound.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles? You are worried because you worry because you worry. That is a vicious circle. So now...
Yep, that's what that's doing, and then it looks like we've got a little bit more compression.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind...
Oops, not that bypass still.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles?
And then some extra delay here.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles?
Oh, yeah, so I'm doing some automation here. That's how we're getting the weird womp, 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 womp kind of things. I don't know if you've ever messed around with like changing the delay time, like while there's signal going through it. It makes like a weird like kind of sounds. So I just wanted to get that sort of sound. So I added some automation here. Kind of see.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind? So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles? You are worried because you worry because you worry. That is a vicious circle. So now...
It's just kind of some random movement. So we get some weird delay stuff happening. And then all together, it's like this.
So then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles? You are worried because you worry because you worry. That is a vicious circle.
Yep, there you go. if you want to hear the whole thing. It's available on streaming platforms pretty much everywhere. All right, that's it. There's that mix.